News Revelation.
Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast today. It is October 23rd, 2025. We're going to get in the headlines in just a second. Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to engage the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment, share the podcast. All right, so today, actually last night, Russia is in the headlines. Trump moves against Russia with oil sanctions. Two of the biggest oil companies in Russia have been sanctioned. That's a big hit for Russia, but even a bigger hit for the oil market. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And also, Trump is easing up on missile restrictions, targeting specifically with the ATACMS, long-range missiles, but holds short on okaying the transfer of Tomahawk cruise missile technology. Excuse me. I have to just say for a minute here that sorry for the late start of the live stream today. The plumber had to come this morning. That took about an hour. And then my liberal brother got on the phone, and he suffers from alcoholism. So he got kicked out of his band, and he called me all excited. So I was on the phone with him that the band had taken him back because miraculously the other guitar player that they had brought in got COVID. So he had sort of a reprieve. And so I was talking on the phone with him for quite some time, trying to encourage him to stop drinking. So we're going to get in the headlines now in just a minute. I should say not right this second, in just a minute. I needed to add one last article here to the stack. Got over 28 articles, I think we're going to go through today. So I just need to do a little, I was just rushing to get the stream up. So, and of course, you know me, I got all these technical difficulties. Nothing seems to freaking work, which is disturbing. So, I need to take just a couple more moments to try to get all these articles going up where they're supposed to be. So we're going to start now with the Wall Street Journal. Trump's oil sanctions strike at Russia's economic lifeline. The U.S. has hit Moscow's biggest oil producers at a vulnerable time in Russia's economy. Like I said, I'm trying to see if I can't get everything, because there are a couple articles that I need to move around to get them in the right spot. I don't want everything to be disjointed here. So just give me one more minute if you don't mind. Thank you. One more. So they did another vote, and I'm going to get to this in just a second too. So the next Wall Street Journal article up today says the U.S. lifts restriction on Ukraine's use of European long-range missiles. So these aren't the ATACMS I spoke about previously. The move coincides with Trump push to pressure Moscow into talks on ending the war and to withhold U.S. Tomahawk missiles from Kiev. So they wanted to give Tomahawk missiles, but as I mentioned previously, and Russia responded with a nuclear attack drill. And because Tomahawk missiles could be tipped with a nuclear warhead, so incoming Tomahawk cruise missiles, Russia will never know whether it's a nuclear first strike from the West or not, or from Ukraine. We don't know. Well, they wouldn't know. The next article up is from One American News. Trump defends plan to import Argentinian beef, argues American cattle ranchers have to get their prices down. So the farmers are not loving Trump right now because the soybean thing with China and the tariffs there, and now this plan for Argentinian beef coming to the U.S. But that was the condition in which Argentina would stop supplying soybeans to China, the only other country that has the infrastructure to support the transfer of that amount of soybeans is Argentina, besides the U.S. So if to help the soybean farmers, he's got to hurt the cattle ranchers. So it's kind of a convoluted thing. Also, as part of the Don Roe doctrine, Trump is trying to wean South America and Central American countries away from China and more towards the United States. And One American News also has the story that Scott Bessent labels the $20 billion economic stabilization agreement with China mission critical. Now, what is he talking about here? Everybody's worried because what about America first? What about the $20 million to America? Shouldn't Americans get that money? Well, the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent asserted that the $20 billion economic stabilization support agreement with Argentina is a mission-critical effort that can continue during the U.S. government shutdown. However, President Donald Trump had stated that the financial package will depend on whether President Javier Milei, the libertarian economist who became president, and his administration remain in power, determining whether he could carry out his proposed market liberalization reforms. Now, this is the key here because these market liberalization reforms are important for conservatives. It's important that they succeed. It's important for conservatives. The $20 billion framework is effectively a currency swap, allowing Argentina's central bank to exchange pesos for U.S. dollars through the Treasury's exchange stabilization fund in what amounts to a short-term loan. The arrangement aims to stabilize Argentina's financial market by boosting liquidity and investor confidence. Bessent's classification of the Argentina deal as mission critical effectively exempts it from shutdown restrictions. The Trump administration's support for Argentina, conditional on Milei's continued leadership, further underscores Trump's alignment with the libertarian president's economic agenda. As I just mentioned, why that is so important to conservatives is that to cut out the central bank and the central government spending on aid to its own citizens, social programs and so forth and so on, which in Argentina had gotten completely out of control. Like hundreds of billions of dollars going to art programs and things like that. It further went on to say that as we work to stabilize and secure the Western Hemisphere and make America safe again, the U.S. Treasury has signed an economic stabilization agreement with the Central Bank of Argentina. President Milei's efforts to reverse his nation's decades of decline stemming from the radical leftism of the Peronists are of critical importance. So that was Trump speaking from True Social, talking about what I just said. It's important for United States conservatives to help similar economic agendas around the world and not rely on this sort of socialist communist model of just spending on constituents in the form of social programs. Okay, moving along here. We're going to go to another big story today. So they had another vote on the government shutdown, and Schumer blocks 12th GOP bid to reopen the government as Trump says Democrats lost the negotiation. Senate Democrats demand healthcare subsidy deal while Trump says no talks until government reopens. So it's a clean CR, as we often said. It's to just keep the government running, and then they talk. So the government runs while we can debate budget priorities. That's the way it's always been done. Chuck Schumer voted for a lot of continuing CRs. Matter of fact, we hadn't had a budget in years. They were just working off CRs. And so the Democrats thought that that's the negotiation. No, we have to do actual budgets annually. Because it's hard to control costs if you're not doing an annual budget. Post-millennial, wipe out every Republican. Dem Texas State Representative Jolanda Jones uses violent rhetoric against conservatives and concerning CNN appearance. And she said, if you hit me in the face, I'm not going to punch you back in the face. I'm going to go across your neck, whatever that means. And then she made this sign, which means to kill you. So basically what she's saying, and it's always this overreaction by POC, is you punch me in the face and I'm going to kill you. Well, that's not an appropriate response. It's like somebody sanctions an oil company, so you launch a nuclear strike. They're so out of touch. And it's always this violent rhetoric. Even you had the former attorney general say, if they hit us high, we don't hit them low, we do something. I forget exact quote. Sorry. I'm very distracted this morning. Like I said, I had all this shit going on this morning, and even though I got all the stories together and was reading quite a bit, I'm just not focused. Coffee. PJ Media has a headline, Master Doxer, Dems create tool to track ICE agents. Now, one of these tools was already created, then taken out of app stores because it was inciting violence. And that was a privately developed application that was tracking the operations and the movements of ICE within cities. So it was the original private app was taken down because it was posing a risk to federal law enforcement. So what happens? The Democrats create another app. California and House Democrats are creating a master tracker for activists to report ICE agents, potentially creating a centralized doxing tool, endangering ICE and possibly even violating federal law. That's why the original app was taken away. Representative Robert Garcia announced the creation of the controversial and condemnable online tool during a press conference with Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, the Cuban communist. Garcia himself described the site as a tracker, raising questions about the legality and the initiative of whether the Trump administration should get involved to have the platform shut down. Well, so we don't really know whether or not it's an app or not. It says platform. So I'm not really even sure what that means. The point is, it is illegal. And it's illegal because what it is doing is inviting obstruction of federal law enforcement. I can't even speak this morning. Oh. Another big story today. Post-millennial illegal immigrant truck driver charged with DUI killing 3 people in California crash that was released into U.S. under Biden. So you might have heard a few months ago that there was also an illegal immigrant, another Sikh. So I guess the Sikhs got involved in truck driving semis. That apparently they're not qualified for driving tractor trailers, obviously. And then in the first accident during the summer, this Sikh driver tried to pull a U-turn in the middle of a highway, and then a minivan with a family in it collided, killing, I think, 4 or 5 people. So Joshua Preet Singh was first apprehended by Border Control in California's El Centro sector in March 2022. And rather than being detained, he was released into the interior of the U.S. pending immigration hearing, where then he subsequently, I guess, got a license to drive a tractor trailer, and then he's killed 3 people. So the thing was this, whether or not he passed the test. Okay, he got the driver's license to drive a tractor trailer, but the point is, when people die, whether it's Laken Riley or anybody else, when people die, the question is always, if these people weren't in the country, that my loved one might still be alive. Or whatever heinous situation occurred, it wouldn't have happened. Speaking of heinous situations, PJ Media, Jay Jones is now under criminal investigation. So the candidate for Virginia Attorney General, who made terrible threats. I mean, given this was a text exchange with a fellow Democrat, a fellow liberal, but made threatening comments in a text exchange about killing a Republican, political violence, and killing their children. Now, Jones, who already made the national headlines for texting that violent fantasy about murdering a Republican politician and his children, now faces criminal investigation over his community service arrangement following a 2022 reckless driving conviction. Well, what was it? Well, the court documents reveal that his community service arrangement following a reckless driving conviction stinks worse than week-old fish, according to PJ Media. Back in 2022, Jones was caught blasting down Interstate 64 at 116 miles an hour in a 70, so it was 70, okay. So after his conviction, Jones agreed to perform 1,000 hours of community service and pay a $1,500 fine instead of serving jail time. Now, I want to go back to 100. Have you ever driven 100? I have. I had frequently driven over 120 miles an hour. That's really fucking fast. Like in a 70, okay, if you're going 90 or you're pushing close to 100, but he's well over 100 miles an hour. I'm not saying you shouldn't be able to do that, because I'm an Autobahn guy. Keep right, accept the pass, and there shouldn't be speed limits. But I'm a libertarian. I believe people should be able to check themselves and not have government do it. But there's a morality problem there. So in any case, you got this agreement not to serve jail time. It's reckless driving. If you're going over a certain speed, over the speed limit, it's considered reckless driving. I had one myself. The problem is where he supposedly performed that service. While 500 hours were completed with the Virginia NAACP, suspect, another 500 hours were allegedly performed with Meet Our Moment, which happens to be Jones's own political action committee. There lies the problem. Okay, I've done community service when I was a teenager. What was it, 40 hours? It was like 40 or 80 hours. 500 hours, let's see. So 40 hours would be a week. So let's say it's 10 weeks. Let's say it's 12 weeks, give or take. Let's say it's 24 weeks of 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. 12 weeks. of 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. There's no way this fucking guy did that. There's no fucking way. Most people never complete the entire amount of community service hours that they're sentenced to. Even I didn't. I had 40, and when it got down to, I think I had 8 or 5 left, the guy was like, here, give me your paper. He took pity on me, but I was a kid. This guy had 1,000 hours. Just divided by 8. Or divided by 40. That'll give you a week of 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. There's no way he completed 1,000 hours. And then to do it at your own nonprofit, did he sign his own? I'm sure he didn't. I'm sure he had somebody that he pays sign his completion form. More crazy Democrats. PJ Media, Democrats are addicted to racism. So Sunny Hostin is at it again. Just yesterday, Sunny Hostin of The View went on a bizarre rant, and she's done this. This is the same rant she does often, claiming that she has to protect her teenage son from the neighbors in her predominantly white and wealthy neighborhood. She painted a picture of racial tension and distrust without offering a shred of evidence that anyone had actually done anything wrong to her son. It's fantasy. It's fantasy without facts. And that's why they keep saying, oh, it's white supremacy and racism is the biggest thing facing this country. It isn't. Nobody cares. I don't fucking care. I got black neighbors. I could care less. Just mow your fucking lawn and clean up the garbage out in front of your house in the street. It's simple. Nobody, in the 21st century in America, I'm not saying everybody, not all. There might be some people that have issues. I don't have issues. As King said, it's the content of your character, not the color of your skin. Who gives a shit? I don't. The problem is with certain POC is the chip on the shoulder, which instead of getting smaller, it gets bigger. The distrust comes from the black community mostly. I don't mistrust people of color. Depends what you're doing. I don't have problems with my neighbors. They're teenage kids sometimes who fly down my street at 50 or 60 miles an hour. But that has nothing to do because they're people of color. It has to do because the kids just are irresponsible. And like I said, speeding on the highway for the most part, I don't give a shit about. But we're a small residential street with no dividing line. It's a small street with no line in the middle. And there are lots of people with little kids and stuff that play in the street. Really not appropriate to drive that fast. Anyway, enough of that. Just the news, FBI is still offering $500,000 reward to find a person who placed pipe bombs at RNC and DNC on January 5th, 2021. Well, they're never going to find them. You know why? Because it's the fucking FBI. So they released previously unreleased footage. It's no different. You see where the camera angles are, right? It's the same thing. At certain points, if they stayed with that camera angle, you would be able to see the perpetrator's face. But they specifically edited out, so all you see is a guy in a hoodie, gray hoodie, walking around. And then he puts two devices that look eerily similar to FBI training devices because they had egg timers, 60-minute egg timers that they don't even make anymore, the little white ones. Everything is digital now. They don't make those stupid crank. And like I said many times before, if you're sophisticated at pipe bombs, why wouldn't you just put a digital timer? It's cheaper. Or you could have it detonate by calling a cell phone. It was never intended to detonate. It was put there the night before on a 60-minute timer. None of them exploded. We didn't even know if it was inert. Apparently there was some explosive material. But the point is that this is an FBI cover-up. The FBI planted the bomb or had someone plant the bombs. And they weren't even bombs. And when they found the bomb, they allowed people and school children to walk right by. So they knew there was no danger. Now, supposedly, this is unreleased footage, higher quality video, and longer clips of the subject's movements. But as I said, still doesn't show his face. When their angles, when the guy changes position and walks toward the camera, if you kept it rolling, you'd be able to see his face. But they edited that part out. Also, last night, Zohan Mandami and the other candidates for mayor of New York City engaged in another debate. New York City mayoral debate highlights key takeaways from Mandami, Cuomo, and Sliwa, Fox 5. As I said in the first debate, I think, and I'm biased, but I think Sliwa won. And I think they originally had Sliwa in the middle, and they had Mandami and Cuomo trading barbs, and it was perfect because Sliwa was in the middle, and he would just add these quick quips that would totally diffuse what the two friggin' socialists were arguing about. And so in this debate, they took Sliwa out of the middle because that helped him last time. But still, he engaged, and for the amount I watched, which was, I don't know, a third, maybe a quarter of it, he seemed to challenge everything these two knuckleheads were talking about in the way of policy. And I thought he won, but that's just me. I wish they would have kept him in the middle, but they obviously understood the mistake of the first debate and they put him on the side. But he chimed in. I thought he won. But nobody in the media is going to say he won because nobody backs a loser in America. If you know someone's going to lose, no one's going to admit, I'm for the guy that's going to lose. Doesn't happen in America. I'll do it. And of course, it says Curtis Sliwa was solid. Mamdani got some licks in. But this reporter says, in his opinion, it didn't change the dynamic of the race. We'll see. Major poll. Majority of Americans favor voter ID requirement, split on mail-in voting. And this is why people are stupid. Oh my God. You know why we've never had mail-in voting? I mean, we did have mail-in voting. It's mail-out voting. It's mail-out ballots. But mail-in voting is absentee ballot. So if you're going to get mailed a ballot to your house, you have to perform, or there's a higher hurdle to prove your identity. And that prevents fraud. I don't believe necessarily that you should always have a reason, because it used to be with absentee balloting, you would have to have a reason you couldn't be at the polls, you're overseas, etc. They should probably ease that restriction, but mail-out balloting, mailing a ballot to every registered voter, invites fraud, and it certainly caused the 2020 election to be fraudulent in favor of Joe Biden. Most people want voter ID, certainly, but they don't understand mail-in voting. Why? There's a sharp gender divide, 54% of males supporting the idea, and this is for mail-in balloting, with 41% versus 41% of females, and that's banning mail-in ballots. A racial divide exists as well, with 55% of white voters in favor of banning, compared to 31% of Hispanic and Latino voters, and only 29% of black voters. Because the line was always, it helps blacks. It doesn't help anybody. It opens the door for fraud, and we saw plenty of it. The poll also found that support levels grow alongside rising income and education levels. Right, because if you know that it causes fraud, then you know. If you have the ability to know. And then generationally, younger voters and voters ages 65 or older oppose the idea the most. Stupid people. So you're either demented in your old age or you're too young to know better. With only 41 and 42% supporting it, respectively. Members of Gen X hold similar views, giving the proposal 45% approval rating. By contrast, of 58% of the millennials. So somebody knows something. Trump's proposal to ban mail-in voting nationally, something he could not do via executive order, but may be able to pressure some states to implement, receives support of 47% of Americans nationally, while 48% of it oppose it. Because it's Donald Trump. Why didn't we have mail-in voting before COVID? Because it allows fraud. You could literally have trucks backing up to vote counting places and dump hundreds of thousands of ballots, pre-filled out ballots, with not one crease in them, and have those votes counted as long as it didn't go over the amount of registered voters in that precinct. It's okay. Joe Biden did not legitimately win the 2020 election. And as I mentioned, requiring voters to present ID at the polls is a much more popular proposal, with 71% of all surveyed voters supporting it and only 23% opposing it. Of course, you have to show your friggin' ID to cash a check, to drive, to whatever. You should have to prove who you are to cast a ballot. Period. And I believe if you register, you have to prove that you are a citizen. I think, and the way it used to be, is only citizens can get driver's license, but with the influx of legal residents, that changed. So, but I think there should be a denotation on the driver's license whether you're a citizen or not. And people have a problem with that, I know. I also have a problem with assisted suicide. National Review has the headline, "Assisted Suicide Slippery Slope Keeps Slip Sliding Away." What are they talking about here? Well, in Victoria, Australia, the province there, they legalized assisted suicide. And as you can see, they're expanding it very similarly to what they did in Canada. Now they offer assisted suicide to people that are depressed or that don't have any money. They offer that, what is it called, MAID? They offer MAID to people who just are discontent for a variety of different reasons. Especially if you're on the dole. You know what I mean? That's like if you're on Medicaid or whatever, and you go to a hospital, oh, she didn't make it, sorry. One less Medicaid to pay. You know, the doctors will get paid, but that'll be the last time, I guess. Mediaite has the article, lawsuit accuses Google's AI of fabricating news articles that never existed. I thought I moved this to I usually have the tech news at the end. So maybe I'll put it back down there. Like a whole other bunch of shit to get through. Yeah, I got more ICE news. I got Forbes. So if you didn't hear this, this is depressing. National debt accelerates to 38 trillion. Watchdog warns it's no way for a great nation like America to run its finances, which I agree. I never said Trump was a conservative. He likes to spend. But the point is, you could easily add what the Democrats are proposing with this shutdown is adding 1.5 trillion to the national debt. So then we'd be pushing 40 trillion. When you start talking to budget things into trillions of dollars, it wasn't that long ago that the U.S. budget was $2 trillion. Then COVID came along, it went up to 6, and then 8, and then back down to 4, but it never went back down to 2. And the fact is, we only take in about $2 trillion in tax revenue. That's why the debt keeps getting bigger. You might have seen this on Fox News. John Fetterman pinpoints moment Democrats lost the plot and Kamala Harris lost herself the election. He was on Hannity. If you call the president or someone like a fascist, you are effectively calling the people who are going to vote for him, then they must be fascists too, or they support fascism and those things, and that's just not true. It's indeed. If you didn't know this, Fetterman comes from a family of Republicans. And so he knows a lot of Republicans. Certainly, if you're from rural Pennsylvania, you'll know a lot of Republicans. And he goes on to say, I refuse to do those kind of things because the kind of extreme kinds of rhetoric make it easier for those kinds of extreme kinds of actions. He means violence. Even like what happened to poor Charlie Kirk. One American News, ICE spokesman notifies New York City to expect an increase in ICE arrests following Canal Street immigration raid. So if you didn't know what happened there, again, they didn't need an app this time, but a bunch of protesters came and were actually assaulting federal officers. It's like, you want to stand there and protest? I don't give a shit. That's your right. But trying to get in between officers and the person they're trying to detain, that's obstruction. And you should be arrested and sent to prison as far as I'm concerned. You don't have any right to put yourself between a law enforcement officer and a perpetrator or alleged perpetrator, a suspect. And then, of course, we know what happened in California. Gunfire erupts in South LA as federal agents confront Mexican illegal alien known for his anti-ICE TikTok videos. Well, when the rooster comes home to roost, so to speak. So you had a Mexican illegal alien online. Obviously, I don't know if he said he was an illegal alien, but that's probably why he was targeted. And obviously, if he's putting propaganda out there or inciting violence or obstruction, that they were looking to take him down to. It's not considered media if you're in the country illegally, encouraging people to fight against federal officers. So if you didn't know anything about the gunfire incident, a vehicle is a deadly weapon, obviously. And then the way they talk about it is the fact that they were surveilling him. They boxed him in with the cars as he got into his car. They got out and tried to arrest him. And he started ramming back and forth in his car. At one point, coming dangerously close to an officer who then fired his weapon. He injured another officer, and that's always a possibility when you discharge your firearm that you're going to injure somebody you didn't intend. So, fired at this guy, hit the guy in the arm, so they were right there. So he could easily administered a kill shot, but fired probably in front of him, fired at his arm, maybe. But he continued to drive aggressively. And at one point, they were trying to break out the window, and that's when he kept ramming the cars back and forth. Like I said, car's a deadly weapon. If you're driving your car at me, I'm going to shoot you. I mean, that happened. I think it was Wisconsin, Montana, Wyoming. I think it was Wyoming, Montana or Wyoming. That this drunk liberal ran over this young conservative kid because he didn't like his politics. More news from the Wall Street Journal. Islamic State rises again in Syria, filling a void left by the U.S. Islamic State is the U.S. Not really, but you know what I mean. Attacked by the militant group are up as it exploits a reduced American presence and the collapse of the Assad regime. With the blessing of the new government, because the guy that heads the new government of Syria was an Islamic militant. Was he with ISIS? I don't know. ISIS was created by the CIA. It's just Al-Qaeda 2.0. The problem is they have problems running it now because they don't have the blessing or the help from Saudi Arabia, which they did under the different prince. So the CIA isn't in there with ISIS. They just provide the environment for ISIS to thrive. And as I mentioned this article before, lawsuit accuses Google of AI of fabricating news articles that never existed. And this was a suit brought by Robbie Starbuck. AI allegedly generated links to non-existent news articles, falsely claiming that he had been accused of sexual assault and other crimes, including faking Rolling Stone, Newsweek, and other news articles, Salon, Daily Beast, New York Post. I just went over an article yesterday from actual articles accusing artificial intelligence of creating news, writing news stories that are inaccurate. Here lies another case. Just blatantly false. Like I said, they're teaching AI to lie, to be deceitful on purpose. And then Tesla profit plunges as Musk turns focus to robot army. This is from the Wall Street Journal. CEO of EV maker says autonomous cars will soon take over. It'll be like a shockwave. Everybody's being displaced. All human employment is going to be displaced. Until the humanoid robots become efficient, it's going to be harder to do things like plumbing and electrical work and all these things. But administrative and anything where a human sits down and uses technology, that can be done by AI. Then another Wall Street Journal article, AI workers are putting in 100-hour work weeks to win the new tech arms race. No, not really. Workers in Silicon Valley are pushing themselves to extremes day after day, after day, after day, after day. No. It's a new tech arms race. Okay, but are we building autonomous drone systems, killer drones? No. We're building AI to take over administrative jobs and other jobs. So it's not a tech arms race. It's a tech displacement race. It's a disruptive technology on the level that we've never, ever, ever experienced before. That's it for me today. So I was less than an hour. Sorry to get on so late with the live stream. Join me tomorrow, 10 a.m., I promise. Live stream on Rumble, other platforms as well, so check me out. Like I said, I got technical difficulties, as you know, as I belabored on and on about it. But this morning I had plumbing difficulty. I had the plumber here early this morning. And then I had my brother on the phone. I had to flap my gums with hit for a while. Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to engage the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment, share the podcast. Remember, you're under attack biologically and psychologically with AI at the forefront. AI and the sock puppets are trying to deceive you, because deceit is like a mainstay for AI, so keep that in mind. So stay hip to that trick, and I'll see you tomorrow. Respect.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
You can't handle the truth.
I'm an American. I have rights.